Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The sun was setting over the bustling streets of Lagos, painting the sky with hues of fiery orange and soft pink. Adaobi sat on the edge of her bed in the modest apartment she had called home for the past 5 years. The room, once filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future, now felt empty and hollow. A large suitcase sat open on the floor, half filled with clothes she had hurriedly packed. The remnants of her shattered marriage lay scattered around the room. Wedding pictures, souvenirs from trips she and Chike had taken together, and the divorce papers that now sat ominously on the bedside table. Adaobi had spent the last few days reliving every moment that had led to this point. She was a woman of strength and ambition, but even the strongest hearts could break. Chike had been her college sweetheart, the man who had promised her the world, but somewhere along the way, the dreams they had built together crumbled. Infidelity, constant arguments, and emotional neglect had eroded the foundation of their union. When she signed the divorce papers, she thought she'd feel relief. Instead, she felt an emptiness so profound that it seemed to echo within her. Tonight, her closest friends, Ifeoma and Kemi, had insisted on taking her out to cheer her up. They wanted her to forget, even if just for a night. Adaobi hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to face the world. But their insistence, coupled with her desire to escape the suffocating silence of her apartment, eventually won her over. The bar they chose was in Victoria Island, a trendy spot known for its lively music and an upscale crowd. When they arrived, Adaobi couldn't help but feel out of place. The room was filled with people dressed to impress, women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits. Ifeoma, ever the fashionista, had dressed Adaobi in a fitted black dress that hugged her curves. It wasn't her usual style, but she admitted it gave her an air of confidence she hadn't felt in a long time. The night began with laughter and cocktails. Ifeoma and Kemi were doing their best to distract Adaobi, recounting hilarious stories and dragging her onto the dance floor. Slowly, Adaobi began to loosen up. The music's rhythm coursed through her veins, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to smile. Then came the shots. One tequila after another blurred her thoughts and numbed her pain. Kemi toasted to new beginnings, and Ifeoma cheered for Adaobi's freedom. "You're too beautiful and too smart to be held back by anyone," Ifeoma declared, her voice rising above the pulsating music. Adaobi laughed, the kind of laugh that carried both sorrow and hope. "To freedom," she toasted, raising her glass before downing the shot. The warmth of the alcohol spread through her, and she let herself forget. Forget the heartbreak. Forget Chike. Forget everything. By the time the clock struck midnight, Adaobi was thoroughly drunk. Her memories of the night became a hazy mosaic of music, laughter, and lights. She vaguely remembered a man offering to help her as she stumbled out of the bar. His voice was deep and soothing, but his face remained a blur. When Adaobi woke up, the first thing she noticed was the softness of the bed. It was unlike anything she had ever felt before, like lying on a cloud. The room smelled of fresh linen and something distinctly masculine, a blend of sandalwood and citrus. As she slowly opened her eyes, she realized she was in a bedroom that could only be described as luxurious. The walls were painted in soft cream tones, adorned with modern art. A large window overlooked the glittering skyline of Lagos, and the furniture was sleek and sophisticated. Panic set in as she sat up, clutching the duvet to her chest. She was still wearing her dress from the night before, though it was slightly rumpled. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the events that had brought her here. She remembered the bar, the shots, and the man's voice. But who was he? And where was she? The sound of footsteps approached, and Adaobi froze. The door opened to reveal a tall, impeccably dressed man. He looked to be in his mid-30s, with deep brown skin, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that held a mixture of curiosity and amusement. He carried a tray with a steaming cup of tea and a plate of toast. "Good morning," he said, his voice as smooth as she remembered. "I hope you're feeling better. You had quite the night." Adaobi stared at him, her mind scrambling for answers. "Where am I? Who are you?" The man set the tray on the bedside table and took a step back, giving her space. "My name is Tunde. You're in my home. Don't worry, nothing inappropriate happened. You were quite drunk, and I couldn't just leave you alone. So I brought you here." His words were calm and reassuring, but Adaobi's wariness didn't fade. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Tunde smiled, a small, knowing smile that hinted at something deeper. "Let's just say I have a habit of helping people in need. You seemed like you could use a friend." Adaobi didn't know what to make of him. He was composed and confident, the kind of man who exuded power without needing to flaunt it. She glanced around the room again, taking in the opulence. Whoever he was clearly wealthy. But why would someone like him bother with someone like her? As if sensing her thoughts, Tunde added, "You don't need to be afraid. Take your time to freshen up. There's a bathroom through that door. When you're ready, we can talk." With that, he left the room, leaving Adaobi alone with her swirling thoughts. She had no idea what kind of world she had stumbled into, but something told her this was just the beginning. The bathroom was as luxurious as the bedroom, with marble floors that gleamed under soft recessed lighting. Adaobi hesitated for a moment, feeling like an intruder in someone else's life. She turned on the tap, letting the cool water run over her hands as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her mascara was smudged, and her hair hung in loose, messy curls. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Taking a deep breath, she splashed her face with water, trying to shake the remnants of last night's haze. As she freshened up, her mind raced with questions about Tunde. Who was he? Why would a man of his status bring a random woman home instead of leaving her to her friends? And what kind of man had a home that looked like something out of an architectural magazine? She stepped back into the bedroom and took another moment to take in the details she had missed earlier. Everything was curated with an eye for elegance, from the hand-woven rugs to the sculptural light fixtures. Adaobi's unease grew. This wasn't just wealth, this was power, and power always came with complications. When she finally emerged, she found Tunde waiting in a spacious living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in natural light, offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. He stood by a sleek bar, pouring what looked like freshly squeezed orange juice into a crystal glass. "Feeling better?" he asked, his tone casual, as if this was an everyday occurrence. Adaobi nodded, still unsure of how to respond. She took the glass of juice he offered, her hands brushing against his briefly. His touch was warm, grounding. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde gestured toward the sofa, and they both sat down. There was a moment of silence before he spoke again. "You don't need to feel embarrassed or worried. I meant what I said earlier, I just wanted to help. You looked like you were going through something, and I've been there before." His words carried a sincerity that made Adaobi's walls begin to crumble. She decided to take a leap of faith. "I recently got divorced," she confessed, staring at the untouched juice in her hands. "My friends thought a night out would help, but clearly I overdid it." Tunde leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Divorce is never easy. But sometimes, endings can lead to new beginnings." Adaobi looked up at him, searching his face for hidden motives. "What about you? Why go out of your way to help a stranger?" A shadow passed over his face, fleeting but noticeable. "Let's just say I know what it's like to feel lost. Sometimes, a little kindness can go a long way." Over the next hour, Tunde revealed bits and pieces of his life. He was a self-made billionaire who had risen from humble beginnings in Ibadan. His parents had been schoolteachers, instilling in him the value of hard work and education. After winning a scholarship to study engineering in the United States, he had gone on to build a tech empire that now spanned multiple continents. Despite his success, he spoke with a humility that surprised Adaobi. As he talked, she found herself relaxing. Tunde was nothing like the arrogant, entitled men she had encountered in the past. He was charming but grounded, with a sharp wit that made her laugh despite herself. "So," he said, his tone lighter now, "what's next for you, Adaobi? What do you want out of life now that you have a fresh start? The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that before. For so long, her life had been defined by her marriage and the expectations that came with it. She hadn't had time to think about what she truly wanted. I'm not sure, she admitted. I studied architecture, but I never really pursued it. Maybe it's time to revisit that. Tunde's eyes lit up. Architecture, huh? That's an incredible field. Do you still sketch? Adaobi smiled, remembering how much she used to love drawing. I do, sometimes. But it's been a while. Well, Tunde said, leaning forward, maybe it's time to start again. You never know where it could lead. As the day wore on, Adaobi felt a strange connection forming between them. There was something about Tunde that made her feel seen, as though he could peer past her exterior and understand the person she truly was. She still didn't fully trust the situation. How could she, given the circumstances? But she couldn't deny the spark of curiosity that had been ignited within her. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting the room in a warm golden glow, Adaobi realized she had spent the entire day in Tunde's home. He had made no effort to rush her or make her feel uncomfortable. In fact, he seemed to enjoy her company just as much as she did his. I should probably go, she said finally, though part of her hesitated. I've taken up enough of your time. Tunde smiled, his expression unreadable. You're welcome to stay as long as you need, Adaobi. But if you'd prefer to leave, I can have my driver take you home. The mention of a driver reminded her once again of the vast difference in their worlds. Still, she nodded. Thank you, Tunde. For everything. As the sleek black SUV pulled up outside her apartment, Adaobi felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. Gratitude? Longing? She turned to Tunde, who had insisted on accompanying her for the ride. If you ever need someone to talk to, he said, handing her a business card with his number on it, don't hesitate to reach out. Adaobi took the card, her fingers brushing against his once more. Thank you, she said softly before stepping out of the car. As she walked into her apartment, she felt a mix of emotions swirling within her. Relief at being back in her familiar space. Curiosity about the man she had just spent the day with. And something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She set the card down on her bedside table and stared at it for a long moment before lying back on her bed. Whatever the future held, she knew one thing for certain. Her life was no longer the same. The days after Adaobi's encounter with Tunde passed in a whirlwind of reflection and tentative renewal. She often caught herself staring at the business card he had given her, its elegant gold-embossed letters glinting under the morning sun that streamed through her apartment window. Despite her reservations, she couldn't shake the memory of his warm smile and the way his words had lingered in her mind. A week after that fateful morning, Adaobi decided to call him. It wasn't impulsive. She had spent hours pacing back and forth, questioning whether reaching out would make her appear desperate. But in the end, curiosity won out. With a trembling hand, she dialed the number. The line rang only twice before his deep, familiar voice answered. Adaobi. I was beginning to wonder if you'd ever call. The ease with which he said her name made her stomach flutter. She cleared her throat, attempting to sound composed. Hi, Tunde. I hope I'm not disturbing you. You could never disturb me, he said, his tone warm. What can I do for you? I've been thinking about what you said, about revisiting my dreams. I'm not sure where to start. There was a brief pause on his end. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of enthusiasm. How about over lunch? I know a place you'll love. The restaurant Tunde chose was nestled in the heart of Ikoyi, overlooking the serene waters of the Lagos Lagoon. Its open-air terrace was adorned with lush greenery, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt worlds away from the chaos of the city. Adaobi arrived a few minutes early, her nerves on edge as she adjusted the simple Ankara dress she had chosen for the occasion. When Tunde arrived, his presence commanded the room without him even trying. Dressed in a tailored navy blazer and crisp white shirt, he exuded confidence. But it was the warmth in his eyes when he saw her that put Adaobi at ease. You look beautiful, he said as he took his seat across from her. Thank you, she replied, her cheeks warming. This place is amazing. I thought you might like it, he said with a smile. Now, Tell me more about your passion for architecture. As the afternoon unfolded, Adaobi found herself opening up in ways she hadn't anticipated. She told Tunde about her childhood in Enugu, where she spent hours sketching the colonial-style houses in her neighborhood. She spoke of her time at university, where she had excelled in design courses but had shelved her ambitions after marrying Chaik, who had insisted her role was to focus on building their home, not designing others. Tunde listened intently, his gaze never leaving hers. It sounds like architecture was more than just a career choice for you, he said thoughtfully. It was a calling. Adaobi nodded, feeling a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. The was. But now, I don't even know where to begin. My portfolio is outdated, and I've been out of the field for so long. Tunde leaned forward, his expression serious. The first step is believing in yourself again. And I'd like to help you with the rest. Tunde's offer to help wasn't just words. Over the next few weeks, he introduced Adaobi to key players in the industry, opening doors she hadn't even known existed. Through his network, she secured an internship at one of Lagos's top architectural firms. Though she was older than most of the other interns, Adaobi embraced the opportunity with humility and determination. Her days were long and exhausting, but they were also fulfilling. She spent her nights sketching and refining her designs, often losing track of time. Tunde became her biggest cheerleader, checking in regularly to see how she was doing and offering words of encouragement when self-doubt crept in. Their relationship deepened during this time, though neither of them explicitly acknowledged it. Tunde would often invite her to dinners or send her thoughtful messages when he sensed she was overwhelmed. Adaobi, in turn, found herself looking forward to their conversations, her heart skipping a beat whenever his name appeared on her phone screen. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the firm, Adaobi received a text from Tunde. Tunde, busy tonight? I have something I'd like to show you. Curiosity piqued, Adaobi replied. Adaobi, not busy. What's the plan? Within an hour, a car arrived to pick her up. It whisked her away to an address she didn't recognize, a sleek, modern building on Banana Island. Tunde greeted her at the entrance, his smile as magnetic as ever. Welcome to my sanctuary, he said, leading her inside. The space was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the lagoon, and the interior was a perfect blend of modern minimalism and African artistry. Sculptures and paintings from renowned African artists adorned the walls, while hand-woven rugs and carved wooden furniture added warmth. You designed this? Adaobi asked, her voice filled with awe. I worked with a team, but yes, this was my vision, Tunde replied. I wanted to create a space that felt like home but also celebrated African creativity. As they walked through the house, Tunde explained the stories behind each piece of art and design choice. His passion for architecture and design was evident, and Adaobi found herself drawn to him even more. When they reached the rooftop terrace, the city stretched out before them, its lights twinkling like stars. Tunde handed her a glass of wine and leaned against the railing. I brought you here because I wanted to remind you of what's possible, he said, his voice soft. You have a gift, Adaobi. And I have no doubt that one day, you'll create something even more extraordinary than this. Adaobi's eyes filled with tears, overwhelmed by his belief in her. Tunde, I don't even know how to thank you. You've done so much for me, and I don't know if I deserve it. He turned to her, his gaze steady. You deserve everything, Adaobi. And more. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was charged with unspoken feelings, a connection that neither of them could deny. But before either of them could act on it, Tunde broke the silence. Come, he said, gesturing toward a cozy seating area. There's something else I want to talk to you about. As they sat down, Tunde revealed his latest project, a philanthropic initiative aimed at providing affordable housing in underserved communities across Nigeria. I want you to be a part of this, he said. Your perspective, your passion, it's exactly what we need. Adaobi was stunned. The opportunity to work on a project of this magnitude was beyond anything she had imagined. Tunde, this is incredible. But are you sure I'm the right person for this? Tunde smiled. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As Adaobi sat there, her heart filled with gratitude and hope, she realized that her life was no longer defined by her past. With Tunde's support and her own renewed sense of purpose, she was finally stepping into the woman she was always meant to be. And though she didn't know what the future held, one thing was clear: her story was just beginning. The days that followed Tunde's proposal for Adaobi to join his affordable housing project were a whirlwind of activity. The initiative, aptly named Hope Habitat, was Tunde's most ambitious philanthropic endeavor yet, aiming to transform the lives of low-income families across Nigeria. The scale of the project was daunting, but the thought of being part of something so impactful filled Adaobi with both excitement and apprehension. For the first time in years, she felt like her skills and passion had a real purpose. The beginning of a dream. Adaobi's first day on the project team was a baptism by fire. Tunde had introduced her to the core team of architects, engineers, and community planners during a meeting at his sleek corporate headquarters. She recognized a few familiar faces from the industry, which only added to her nerves. Most of them were seasoned professionals, while she was the newcomer who hadn't practiced for years. But Tunde's vote of confidence in her made all the difference. He spoke about her contributions with conviction, positioning her not as an intern but as a visionary whose ideas could shape the project. While Adaobi was initially overwhelmed, she quickly realized she couldn't afford to second-guess herself. If Tunde believed in her, she had to believe in herself. During that first meeting, she presented her ideas with a mix of hesitation and determination. Her focus was on sustainability and incorporating local materials into the designs to ensure the housing estates would reflect the communities they were meant to serve. "I think we should also focus on functionality," Adaobi said, addressing the room. "Many families in these communities run small businesses from home. We can design spaces that accommodate their needs: a corner for tailoring, a small stall for selling provisions, or even a workshop." Her suggestions were met with nods and thoughtful murmurs. One of the senior architects, a man named Mr. Bamadil, smiled approvingly. "It's refreshing to see such a grounded perspective. I think we can integrate some of these ideas into the pilot phase." Adaobi breathed a quiet sigh of relief. She had made it through her first real test. Building trust. Working closely with Tunde on Hope Habitat brought them into each other's orbit more often than ever before. Despite the professional boundaries they tried to maintain, there was an undeniable connection simmering beneath the surface. They spent hours poring over blueprints, visiting potential sites, and brainstorming solutions to challenges. One day, during a site visit in a rural community on the outskirts of Lagos, Tunde and Adaobi sat under the shade of a mango tree, taking a break from the sweltering heat. The community elders had just left after an engaging discussion about the housing needs of their people. Tunde handed Adaobi a bottle of water and leaned back against the tree trunk. "You know," he began, "you've impressed a lot of people on this team, but most of all, you've impressed me." Adaobi chuckled nervously. "I'm just doing my part. This project means so much to me." "It's more than that," Tunde said, his gaze steady. "You bring heart to everything you do. That's rare." She looked away, unsure how to respond. The intensity in his voice made her heart race. "I want to make a difference," she said finally. "After everything I've been through, I want to create something meaningful." Tunde nodded, his expression softening. "You already are." The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken emotions. But before either of them could say anything more, a group of children playing nearby burst into laughter, breaking the spell. Challenges and triumphs. As the project progressed, Adaobi faced her share of challenges. Coordinating with local governments, negotiating with suppliers, and ensuring the designs met the community's needs often felt like an uphill battle. There were days when the pressure seemed unbearable, and she found herself questioning if she was truly up to the task. But every time doubt crept in, Tunde was there to remind her of her capabilities. His faith in her became a source of strength, and over time, she began to trust herself as much as he did. One particularly difficult day, when a critical shipment of materials was delayed, Adaobi sat in the office, her head in her hands. Tunde walked in and immediately noticed her distress. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting beside her. "It's the roofing materials," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "The delay means we'll miss our deadline for the first phase." Tunde placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll figure it out. Let's call the suppliers together and see what can be done. They spent the next 2 hours making calls, brainstorming alternatives, and rallying the team. By the end of the night, they had devised a plan to source temporary materials locally while waiting for the shipment. The crisis was averted, and Adaobi learned an invaluable lesson about resilience. A night to remember. As the months passed, the bond between Tunde and Adaobi deepened. Their professional partnership flourished, but so did their personal connection. They shared late-night conversations about their dreams, fears, and the moments that had shaped them. Tunde opened up about the struggles he had faced in his early years, while Adaobi confided in him about the pain of her divorce and the insecurities it had left behind. One evening, after the successful completion of the project's pilot phase, Tunde invited Adaobi to a celebratory dinner at his home. The atmosphere was warm and intimate, with soft music playing in the background and the aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice and grilled fish wafting through the air. As they sat on the terrace, sipping wine and gazing at the city lights, Tunde turned to her. "You've been incredible, Adaobi. This project wouldn't have been the same without you." She smiled, her cheeks flushing. "Thank you, Tunde. But this was a team effort." "Maybe," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "But you were the heart of it." The air between them crackled with unspoken feelings. Tunde reached for her hand, his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her. Adaobi. Before he could finish, she leaned in, closing the distance between them. Their kiss was soft and tentative at first, but it quickly deepened, carrying with it all the emotions they had been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, Adaobi searched his face, her heart pounding. "Tunde, this changes everything." He cupped her face in his hands, his eyes filled with tenderness. "Maybe it's time for things to change." A new chapter begins. That night marked a turning point for Adaobi and Tunde. While they both knew the risks of blending their professional and personal lives, they also knew they couldn't ignore the connection they shared. Together, they decided to take things one step at a time, trusting that their bond was strong enough to weather whatever challenges lay ahead. As Adaobi drifted off to sleep that night, her heart was full. She had found not only a renewed sense of purpose but also a partner who believed in her wholeheartedly. For the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. And though the journey was far from over, she was ready to face it, one step, one design, and one dream at a time. The early morning sun cast a golden glow over the newly completed housing estate, the centerpiece of Hope Habitat's pilot phase. Rows of beautiful, functional homes stood as a testament to months of hard work, resilience, and collaboration. Families moved about, children's laughter filling the air as they played in the communal spaces. Adaobi stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed by a sense of accomplishment. This was more than just a collection of buildings. It was a promise of stability and dignity to families who had long been overlooked. The grand opening. The grand opening ceremony was a vibrant celebration of community and hope. Traditional drummers performed as guests arrived, filling the air with infectious rhythms. Local dignitaries, architects, and even international philanthropists had gathered to witness the unveiling of a project that had already begun to gain recognition far beyond Nigeria. Adaobi wore a stunning Ankara dress, her hair styled in an elegant updo. She stood next to Tunde, who looked dashing in a traditional agbada embroidered with intricate gold patterns. Together, they welcomed the guests, their partnership evident in the way they worked seamlessly as a team. Tunde had insisted that Adaobi deliver the keynote speech. At first, she had been reluctant, worried that her words wouldn't do justice to the monumental effort behind the project. But as she stepped onto the stage and looked out at the crowd, a calm determination settled over her. She began by sharing the vision behind Hope Habitat and the importance of giving back to communities. Her voice grew steadier as she spoke about the challenges they had faced and how those obstacles had only strengthened their resolve. "This isn't just about building houses," she said, her voice filled with passion. "It's about building futures. It's about creating spaces where dreams can flourish and families can thrive. I'm grateful to have been part of something so transformative, and I hope this is only the beginning." The audience erupted in applause, and Tunde's gaze met hers, filled with pride. When she stepped off the stage, he pulled her into a brief, discreet hug. "You were incredible," he whispered. A new beginning. As the event wound down and the last of the guests departed, Tunde and Adaobi found a quiet moment to themselves. They stood on a balcony overlooking the estate, the soft glow of streetlights illuminating the scene below. "This is just the first step," Tunde said, his voice contemplative. "We've proven that it's possible, but there's so much more to do." Adaobi nodded. "It's overwhelming when you think about the scale of the need. But today I realized something. Even if we can't change the whole world, we can change it for someone." Tunde turned to her, his expression serious. "You've changed my world, Adaobi." Her breath caught at his words. Over the past months, their relationship had grown deeper and more intimate, but they had both been careful to keep their personal feelings separate from their work. Now, there was no hiding the truth. "You've changed mine too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde reached for her hand, his touch firm and reassuring. "I want to do this with you, not just the work, but life. All of it." Tears welled in Adaobi's eyes. She had spent so long doubting herself, wondering if she was worthy of love and success. But with Tunde she had found both. "I want that too," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, the impact of Hope Habitat rippled across Nigeria. The pilot phase became a model for sustainable and community-focused development, drawing interest from other states and even international organizations. Tunde and Adaobi worked tirelessly to expand the project, ensuring that it remained true to its mission of empowering underserved communities. But their work wasn't without its challenges. Bureaucratic hurdles, funding gaps, and occasional skepticism from stakeholders tested their resolve. Yet, every time they faced a setback, they found strength in each other. Adaobi grew into her role as a leader, balancing her responsibilities on the project with her blossoming relationship with Tunde. Together, they navigated the complexities of their personal and professional lives, always returning to the shared belief that their work mattered. The proposal. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Tunde surprised Adaobi with an impromptu getaway. He took her to a secluded beach in Ape, where the waves lapped gently against the shore under a blanket of stars. A candlelit table awaited them, its simplicity a stark contrast to the grandeur of their usual surroundings. As they dined, Tunde reflected on their journey. "I've achieved a lot in my life," he said, his voice tinged with emotion. "But nothing has been as fulfilling as what we've built together, both with Hope Habitat and with us." Adaobi smiled, her heart full. "I feel the same way." Tunde reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a stunning engagement ring, a simple yet elegant design that perfectly captured Adaobi's understated beauty. "I never thought I'd find someone who challenges me, inspires me, and makes me a better man. But I found that in you. Adaobi, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, unable to find the words. "Yes," she finally managed, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, Tunde, I will." A legacy of love. Their engagement marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for them but for the communities they continued to serve. Together, they became a symbol of hope and resilience, using their love and partnership to create a lasting legacy. Years later, as Adaobi looked out at the countless housing estates they had built, now home to thriving communities, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had begun as a drunken night of despair had led her to a life filled with purpose, love, and impact. She had found her voice, her passion, and her partner. And in doing so, she had proven that even the most unexpected beginnings could lead to extraordinary endings. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.